Aren't you glad that we live in a different era? Today we're going to be looking at how to create a VHS look. This is perfect for recreating stuff from the 90s, the 80s, or just being a little bit different, I guess. If you enjoyed that opening example, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comment section. This effect was highly requested by you guys, so if there is something that you want to see in future, let us know in the comment section down below. For this tutorial, you can follow along in HitFilm Express, but I'm going to be using HitFilm Pro. This is because it has two effects that are exclusive to HitFilm Pro that are incredibly useful for this effect. But hey, why not download the demo of HitFilm Pro and try it out today? Anyway, let's get old school.
That was terrible. Let's do that again.
First off, we need to create our composite shot. I have some footage here that we shot at 1080p, but that is a 16:9 aspect ratio, and we want to go for a 4:3. So we're going to grab my footage and bring it down to composite shot. Oh, him. To change this into a 4:3 aspect ratio, we'll go down to the cog, and I'm going to change this to 1400 by 1050. And now that's a 4:3. But we still have all this space if you want to move anything around. Now the whole point of this overlay is to make our footage look less modern. First off, let's de-res this. We're going to add a mosaic, which you can find under distort, and apply that on. And already you can see that it's de-resed it. I'm going to do this by 480 by 360. That's the traditional resolution of an old TV. Nowadays we can do like 12K. As you'll notice, we have a lot of color and contrast within this image. We want to get rid of that. Let's find a brightness and contrast, apply that on underneath our mosaic, and we're going to dial up the brightness to about 50, and then the contrast to 50 also. And you'll see that looks a lot more washed out and a little bit naff. So we can see immediately what a difference that is making to us. If your shot has too much color in or not enough, then add a hue and saturation, and you can dial up the sat so you've got a little bit more data, yep. Or decrease it so it's even flatter. I think that's pretty good around there, just for a little bit more than we need. Next up, we're going to add a vignette. So I'll go to the new layer icon, hit plane, name it Vinny. I'm going to get the elliptical mask, double tap it, and invert. Give it a little feather, and change that. So yeah, that way you've got the darkness going around the edges.
So I'm minding my own business?
Mind your own business, and then you see pro.
Okay.
This image is sharp, but we're going to over sharpen it. So let's add a grade layer and press F2 to rename this sharpen. And we're going to first off get the unsharpened mask and apply that on and change it to the preset add texture. And then we're going to duplicate it because we want to get another one, which is enhance detail. And I'm going to up the radius to about maybe 20. You can see what we're doing here. We're now actually like bringing up that really kind of like crunchy detail. In any other effect, you should not be doing this. I'm Bob Benson, part of the team.
It's only Tuesday.
In our opening example, we had a lot of scratches going on. This is usually from struggles to play back the VHS. So let's add a couple. Add another grade layer. Let's rename this scratches. We're gonna go ahead and add a fractal noise. This looks way too much, but we're gonna go into transform and access scale and bring the X all the way up. And then I think we can leave Y as is, maybe. Yeah, no. I'm gonna bring the Y to about 25 actually. What we're gonna be doing from here is just taking the seed and then animating it over the course of our clip. What this will do is just change it every few frames so it's never exactly the same. Move my keyframe all the way to the edge. So that way over the course of your animation it's constantly changing and flickering, and it's just a really cool effect. To bring in some more detail, add a sharpen, a normal sharpen this time, not an unsharpen. Gonna dial that up. Nice and crunchy. And finally a curves. This is to bring in as much detail as you can and definition. We don't really want gray, we want black and white. Finally, all we're gonna do is change this blend mode to soft light. That's a little bit too strong, so maybe I'm gonna dial down the opacity ever so slightly so it's a bit more subtle. They act as like additional scan lines. Because this is still too clean, let's add another grade layer, and this one will be our grain. There are a couple ways that you could go about doing this one. You could have a film grain, and that'll work just fine if you dial that to about an 8mm. Alternatively, there's the option to do a actual grain effect, and then you just dial the amount to a point that you're really happy with. Yeah, that's looking really bad. Good job. One thing that we added to the opening example was the distortion line. This was a really subtle thing to kind of give it that like signal loss sensation. Go to new layer, add another grade. We're doing a lot of grades, and we'll call this waves. And we're going to move this underneath our sharpen as well, because we want that to match up. First off, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Cool. We go to the mask tool and get a rectangle mask, double tap, and it'll highlight the entire area. So what we can do from here is grab all these points and make a mask. We want it to animate over the entire screen, and this is probably the easiest way that we could go about it. Open up the mask details, go into transform and hit path. This will be our first keyframe. So let's grab that top and bring that all the way down to about a bar this big. I want to highlight all those clips and make sure that it goes completely off screen. And on the other end of my timeline, grab these. Now with the mask being animated, we can add some effects. First off, let's add another mosaic. This will just help lower the resolution a little bit more, so it looks really naff when it comes over. You can see in that area where we're attacking. And then we're going to go and add waves. You can find this under distort, but I just like to type. And then yeah, apply waves. What we're going to do from here is just dial up the amplitude and then lower the frequency. So maybe about 3 would work. Oh, too big. So let's bring that down a bit. And all I want to do from here is just feather the strength of my mask. One last thing I missed out on is bringing up the phase speed. You want to animate this just ever so slightly so it kind of like moves across, otherwise it will be static. And once you have one of these, you can then duplicate it. Let's call this one big waves. Offset it ever so slightly by a few frames, and then change the settings of the amplitude and the frequency, and just have some crazy distortion going on. Nice. The last effect, and probably the main reason that we're in Pro today, is for chromatic aberration. So we'll go into grade, F2, chromatic, and let's find chromatic aberration. It may not look like much right now, but if I dial up the distance to the maximum distance, you can see that the RGB values have now divided. They've split from certain distances, and you see this all the time in old footage. To me, this is the main effect that makes it look very old. But I don't want it to be everywhere. You'll often see it around the edges of frame more than actually on a subject. So let's mask this layer ever so slightly with an elliptical mask and invert it. And kind of like with the vignette, we're just going to feather this ever so slightly. And that's it. You've taken HD footage and grungified it into the 90s. Congratulations. Again, this effect was highly requested by you guys, so if there's something that you want to see, let us know down below. As always, like this video, subscribe to the channel for more tutorials like this one that you've just watched, and we will see you next time.